Why are you so passionate about the case of Julian Assange? And also, why is it so important for all of us?
Yeah, I think the persecution of Julian Assange is kind of a microcosm of the crisis of our democracy. It's not only an assault on press freedom, it also makes a mockery of our judicial system. Um, and it's an abuse of human rights. And to look at it closely, this is sort of what happens under empire. And in many ways, we have a choice here between empire or democracy. They're not compatible with each other. And the question is, which side are we on? Um, we can talk later about the ways in which the US empire has really gone off the rails. But one of the ways that that happens is that the empire comes home and becomes the enemy within. And that's very much where we are right now. And to actually look at this case, you see really just shocking evidence of the way that uh, Julian Assange is the victim of psychological torture at the hands of the state. That is a very dangerous thing. That's not that's not a state of affairs that we should be at all casual about. And to look at the imposition of um, arbitrary confinement, arbitrary and solitary confinement, which is considered torture by the United Nations, the total cutting off of his communications. He was not allowed even what prisoners are allowed to have, the basic of 1 hour of sunshine and exercise per day. He was subject to character assassination campaigns and could not respond to them because his communications were cut off. The security agencies, namely the FBI and the CIA, basically colluded with other state governments and organizations in order to illegally spy on him. Remember, Daniel Ellsberg won his case because the office of his psychiatrist had been broken into. And in this case, it really greatly exceeds that kind of violation of due process, in that he was spied upon by cameras that were installed through the wishes of the CIA, was spying on him in the Ecuadorian embassy, and not only spying on him, but also on his lawyers. In any real system of justice, that would have put an end to the prosecution right then and there, but the excesses actually go way beyond that. I won't detail them all, but I do want to say that his communications with his attorneys were basically completely blocked, and all sorts of intrigue was created by the CIA and the FBI that actually went to the nation of Iceland. And the interior minister, has been shouting about this for the past 10 years, that basically the FBI came to Iceland under false pretenses in order to orchestrate crimes against the state of Iceland, which in fact they had already done when they showed up. But basically they were caught red-handed in an illegal scheme of entrapment. Not only that the entrapment was illegal, but they created crimes, basically computer crimes, in order to try to vilify Julian Assange, because people tend to be very sympathetic to whistleblowers, especially when they're blowing the whistle on war crimes and corruption and torture, which is what Julian Assange is being persecuted for. What he's doing essentially is being a publisher, and this case establishes entirely new precedent of going after a publisher for doing their job, which in this case is to publish true information, which is absolutely vital to the public interest and to holding government to account. If we don't have a press that's willing to be a watchdog instead of a lapdog, which is what we have right now, then we don't have a democracy. The First Amendment was established as the First Amendment for very good reason. At the time, we were throwing off the chains of a colonial empire. So the First Amendment, as well as protection of privacy, the right to protest and so on, all these things that are being massively violated right now, they were established because that's what you need to have a democracy. And to allow them to be attacked by basically the excesses of the intelligence agencies right now is to essentially roll over for empire instead of standing up to be the democracy that we must be. That in a nutshell, is why, I think when people become aware of what's going on here and break through the media propaganda, which is a poster child in and of itself of the corruption and the co-optation of corporate media, when people break through to actually hear and understand what's going on, it's extremely motivating. International leaders, the president of Mexico just came out a couple days ago demanding that Biden drop the case. Parliamentarians from across Western democracies have stood up, notably not so in the US, where people are very intimidated by our climate of McCarthyism. And having been a target of that myself, I think it's just so important for people to really think very carefully about the kind of propaganda that is directed against us. We used to be protected from propaganda, or at least more protected than we are now. And part of that came after the Nixon excesses. And after Nixon was impeached, the Church Committee established better protections so that we wouldn't go down that road of influence peddling, corporate influence, malfeasance by the security agencies. They were established at that time, but they have basically been rolled back. And so we are now subject to propaganda here at the domestic level, much as we've continued to do internationally. A lot of the people who've been the experts in military propaganda are now in charge of the talking points put out by US security agencies right now, right into the hands of the corporate media that obediently repeats after Big Brother here. So, we're in a very dangerous situation. It's very important for us to stand up and defend our democracy, which is very much under attack.